It's no secret that our democracy today is owned by large corporations and the wealthy elite. And for most Americans coming of age today, this is simply how things have always been. But rest assured, this is not how the government has always been run, and I have Howard Nations with me now to explain how we got to this point. Howard, you and I specifically have discussed the issue of how, the 1% rules, they have just this unlimited influence over our democracy, over our courts. But I think what's important to point out to people is that it wasn't always like this, and that this didn't just suddenly spring up with the Roberts Court here. This is something that they had been working on for close to about 45 years by the time the Supreme Court finally got their hands on it. So take us back a bit and just kind of explain how we even got to this point of where we are today with unlimited corporate rule.
Well, an obvious starting point for the current situation begins with the trickle-down economics of Ronald Reagan in 1980, which began the income inequality shift. When you get enough income inequality, eventually you get to wealth inequality. Wealth inequality came on big time during the years of 2000 to 2008 when Bush and Cheney turned over the keys to the American Treasury to Wall Street and to hedge funds. So since then, we've seen implementation of all kind of policies that led to just extraordinary wealth income, which increases every day. Now, the obvious thing to follow that is, after income and wealth, is to use all that to get a power shift. So now you get the power that goes with all that income and all that wealth. And right now they're trying to accomplish a major power shift in America with a tax on American values. The things that the corporations and the 1% and the Republican leadership fear, they fear voters, they fear jurors, they fear unions. And so they want to use all of this money now to bring about new restrictions on voting, undermining unions and collective bargaining, and the 1% are just straight up buying elections in order to silence the majority. Also, incidentally, they're making a tax on trial by jury, which is another of our most important values that's under siege right now. And they're doing those attacks on multiple fronts. They went to the state legislatures. They're spending vast amounts of money on little, relatively insignificant, comparatively insignificant state legislative seats that they're spending massive amounts of money to gain control of state legislatures. They've gone to Congress where they've been spreading money around forever, and it's having its effect. They also go to the federal agencies that are controlled by Congress, whose purse strings are controlled by Congress. And then, of course, they go to the Roberts Court, which is the Roberts Court is the right wing of the Republican Party. It's the private court of the right wing. And so their goal is a systematic power shift from the majority of Americans to the rich and the super rich minority. And it's working.
Well, and you know what's very interesting about this whole concept here is that Democrats tend to kind of focus on a single issue for the most part. I know we say Republicans are single issue voters, but you have different portions of the Democratic Party, Democratic supporters, who say we're 100% about the environment. We are 100% about reproductive rights. We're 100% about whatever. And those things are great. You have to have all those, and they're very important issues that are being attacked right now. But what the Republicans did was they set up this multifaceted program to attack every single aspect of American democracy in order to achieve the one goal. And that was, unlimited rule by corporations and the 1%. And as you pointed out, you start off, you go after the workers. You take away their right to unionize, which decreases their income, decreases their power, decreases the amount of money they can give to politicians. You go after, local races, state legislatures, state judges, something we've discussed in the past as well. The money flowing into the lower courts is absolutely unbelievable right now, and it's so that you can kill lawsuits before they begin.
Yep.
And then, finally from that is they go and they buy the major politicians, the guys in the House of Representatives or the U.S. Senate. And so they've been doing all of this for years and years and years. And to focus on only one aspect of it we miss the bigger picture. We miss the ultimate goal. And I think to an extent, that's kind of caught the Democrats off guard, because suddenly, once all the pieces are in place, it's hard to attack it as a whole. And that's where we are right now, I believe.
You're right. The Democrats have depended on bipartisanship. And over the years, they've passed pro-labor with the Wagner Act. They passed McCain-Feingold, bipartisan campaign reform act. They passed the Voting Rights Act of '65. They passed the reauthorization of it completely in 2006. So the Democrats focus on trying to work with the other members of Congress and to get things through on a bipartisan basis. That obviously doesn't work anymore. The elite power purchase that's currently taking place has a small group of elite who are pushing exclusion of the minority. They're attacking and destroying American values, voting rights, labor rights, and campaign finance reform. And just like, for example, the Voting Rights Act, which was passed on a bipartisan basis, was just wiped out by what? By the Roberts Court, the wholly owned Roberts Court. So the wealthy are purchasing the powerful. They're getting conservative state legislatures, conservative governors, right-wing congressmen, and then they really had a scare in 2008 with the election of Obama on such a populist basis. They felt threatened. They had owned the White House for 8 years with Bush and Cheney, and so this was interesting. They fought back with an army of lobbyists. Now, if you go back and look at the lobbyists starting in 1971, there were 175 lobbyists registered in D.C. By 82, it got to 2,500. Now, their registered number in 2013 was 12,281, but a lot of lobbyists are operating under the same registration. The actual count of lobbyists in Washington right now is closer to 100,000. And so this is government by the lobbyists, of the lobbyists, by the lobbyists, for the corporations.
Well, and, again, it all goes back to when you look at the 1970s, this Powell memo by Lewis Powell, before he joined the Supreme Court. He laid out this plan for the Republican Party in order to achieve these goals, but it wasn't because Powell wanted necessarily, to help Republicans succeed. This was to help corporations succeed.
Absolutely.
And all of these things that have been done, it's not to the benefit of the Republican Party other than they get more money from corporations. It's to benefit the already wealthy in this country. And so those people pouring in this money, they're not necessarily Republican or Democrat. They're just giving money to a politician willing to do their bidding, because we see plenty of Democrats taking this corporate money who make horrible votes as a result. And so, they watch which way the wind blows. Wherever they see they can make gains is where they will put that money. And most of the time, obviously, it is the Republican Party.
Well, it's not just mere chance that this happened. This was by design, and you put your finger right on it. Lewis Powell, who was a corporate lawyer, in 1971 wrote a memorandum to a friend at the Chamber of Commerce, and he espoused the argument that the elites should assume more power, elites should have a greater voice in public decision making, and they should be making decisions all across the public structures, and all that more power than the average American. Now, Powell laid out a blueprint for accomplishing that, and they've been working under that blueprint ever since. Now, two direct results of Powell's memorandum. Number one, Nixon appointed him to the United States Supreme Court. Number two, the Heritage Foundation, which is flourishing today, was formed for the express purpose of implementing the Powell Memorandum. The Heritage Foundation's goal is to reduce power of the average American, increase the powers of the elite, and they're doing quite a good job of it.
And that all lands with where we are today, this attack on voting rights, the attack on unions, the attack on workers in general, on worker protections, on everything. And it all comes back to that 1971 Lewis Powell memo.
Yep.
And I don't think Powell could have ever dreamed that it would have not only taken hold, but be as prosperous for the Republican Party as it is today. And Howard, unfortunately, we are out of time, but thank you for telling us the story. It's something that most Americans don't understand, that this corporate takeover of America has been 45 years in the making, and really, they're just getting started.
And the bad news is they're extremely successful so far, and as you say, this is just the launch pad.
Howard, thank you very much.
My pleasure, Farron.